Imagine a homeless man with tattered up clothing. Imagine him admiring a gold chain while polishing it at a bus stop. Imagine me, a child, in the back seat with a cracked window, scanning him up and down, puzzled by what I see. I make accidental eye contact, and then a sudden fear keeps me frozen at a glare as he swings his chain in one hand left and right. It was mesmerizing. He becomes aggravated and looks down on his chain, then back at me, then at his chain, then back at me, each time quicker than the last. He gets up, points directly at me, and yells, "I'm gonna get you!" Quickly, I turn away to my mother with a pale face and watery eyes. She's busy in her own thoughts, probably concerned about making ends meet. The thought of being kidnapped by this stranger was the first time I felt real panic. Later, I wondered if he had a family or any friends, if he gave up everything for a piece of jewelry, or if that was all he had from when he once had a home. Was it stolen to be pawned, or given to him by someone who wanted to help? Over the years, my fear turned into sympathy and back into fear again. I had developed the fear of someday becoming a homeless person. Anyone who lives in Los Angeles has had their encounters with beggars off freeways and at a liquor store underneath a bridge. I wondered where they came from and what their story was. I sometimes help with $1 or two. Most times I can't, and it upsets me to have them to encounter, so I pretend they're invisible. As sad as this is to think about, I refuse to imagine myself in their position. Today I'm going to tell you about a couple of points connected to why I'm afraid of becoming homeless. First off, most causes of homelessness are very common and could happen to anyone. With all these factoring in, it's these unlucky causes that might occur and is a very real outcome that could tear your life. Examples of these lifestyles can be viewed right outside around the corner, more specifically the community that's been formed on Skid Row. Witnessing this means, to me, it means a much more real perspective than most of the country does and even know exists or refuses to acknowledge. I personally grew up in a poverty-stricken household that led to multiple evictions. So I've had first-hand experience with the cold, uneasy feeling of not living under my own roof. Whether it's being stuck in a motel, trying to get in and having your mother roll you up in a blanket, staying at a family's friend's house, or simply sleeping in a car, I was sadly exposed to the trauma. My second point is on homelessness in the form of being alone. Whether it's losing all family members, significant others, or friends to death, neglect, or self-inflicted separation, spending every night somewhere you live that's emotionally empty is a real fear. For instance, all relationships in life can become overlooked and taken for granted. Suddenly people are gone around and there's nothing left except the self-guilt that either drove them away or drove oneself away from them. I find that people that become workaholics or purposely spend time alone living in an antisocial state can witness the inevitable feeling of not having a person or people to call home. Also, inheriting an unfortunate life with neglect or domestic abuse can possibly result to someone in a traumatic way and having the inability to inherit a home of their own with anyone. The traumatic circumstances that the man with the gold chain had made on me is a large impact of my life. All the nightmares, the made-up threats I convincingly told myself about when encountering people on the street, the peer pressure I got from friends throwing an egg at one once and breaking it in its face. All the ignorance of assumption that those people are criminals or just too lazy to work, all that negativity that had changed dramatically for more I've studied my fear. I'm confident in myself on doing what I can to return to college and make something of my life. I know I can only control some aspects of my life, but at least I can prepare myself for the worst. I can reflect on my fears to make myself better. I feel the need to be a little more courteous and prideful to share with those who are less fortunate and try to give what I can. I am not invisible, and neither are the homeless people. They are not who I fear. They are the victims living a life I fear. Thank you.